one from Colm Kelleher, one of the scientists who worked with you on I think the BASS project and also the NIDS as well. And he says, quote, "A central working hypothesis is that an ancient parasitic intelligence has been on Earth for thousands of years. A related hypothesis is that there is a small minority of humans endowed with above average discernment. This cadre of humans belongs to a particular gene pool considered dangerous by the phenomenon because they alone can create countermeasures to the control system." What do you think of that analysis by Colm, Jacques?
I think it's the fruit of many discussions that we had as a group. Colm was running most of the day-to-day administration, business and research for BASS.
Make sure to check out all the links down in your breadbasket. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends. Go do all the things right now. Come find me at x.com/shotgunmind. We will do the thing.
There is no doubt at all, is there, Jacques, that the phenomenon, whatever it is, has, on occasion, killed people, murdered people.
So I wouldn't say that.
Interesting. That's interesting.
What I said, and I know there's somebody has taken my words out of context, as often happens, has made it sort of a joke that I believe. I think he used the word murder. What has happened, and we've known that for a long time, and that's something that NIDS looked at, that BASS has looked at. Certainly in the medical files, we have instances of people losing their life as a consequence of being close to a UFO or being exposed to the light of a UFO. And those are documented medically. Some of them are medically well documented. And I've participated in some of that research. Obviously, that's something that we should be interested in.
So that's, if you like, incidental damage. It may be that these people have just unfortunately come into close proximity to UAP, whatever the phenomenon is. And
yes, but if a 6-year-old kid runs after a ball in front of a Mack truck, that girl is going to be killed. And
Sure.
There is nothing we can do about it. And there is nothing the driver of the Mack truck can do about it. Okay.
But so, what about the cases like the Chubba Chubbas?
Some of those clearly accidents. Okay.
Yeah.
There is radiation. There is radiation we don't understand.
There are distressing cases, though, and I've seen the photographs from the Brazilian Air Force where they show people who have been mutilated, dead bodies with holes cut into them, parts of flesh cut away. That does look like a deliberate injury. And more importantly, in the Coutlhart incidents, there are descriptions of people being hit with what appear to be directed beams of energy.
Yes.
Ross fuckum Coulthart. Jacques Vallee, Project Blue Book, Space Travel and Military Secrecy, Reality Check. This is Ross's News Nation UFO Interview of the Week. It's actually pretty good. This is one of the first interviews. Ross has always done a good job as far as being an interviewer. I think a lot of people kind of disagree with that at face value, mostly because they would point out that he doesn't ask all of the follow-up questions or even the right follow-up questions. you know. It seems like Ross has an agenda, and so when it comes to Grush and Elizondo and Jake Barber and that kind of category of modern UFO whistleblower people, that seems to be true. Like he doesn't ask the big follow-up questions, the big burning ones, right? He presents them in the best light and doesn't do much challenging, at least as far as the interview that we end up getting on News Nation. So, with that being said, this is kind of not that kind of interview. I mean, Jacques Vallee has been around forever. He's not a cornerstone, he's a pillar of ufology. There's the French guy smoking cigarettes in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg movie that's supposed to represent Jacques Vallee. You can't do anything in ufology without at least mentioning the guy at some point. He's on every panel. He's on everything that there is out there. Even at like the SALT conference, he was kind of like in the room, side-eyeing people. Like looking at him, kind of, who's this guy? What is Carnell talking about? And then he would kind of be the guy in the room asking the burning follow-up questions of people like Carl Nell. So this is a good interview. They kind of cover maybe a little bit of everything as far as ufology goes, and they get into some of the real good stuff. And like I always kind of come back at certain parts of ufology on X and YouTube and wherever that will be explained to you about how good the aliens are. But the aliens are there, they're real, they're doing the things that do. But they're good guys. They're all good guys. And especially the ones that say that all the aliens are all good guys. The aliens are benevolent. All of them. And we'll follow kind of that straw man path down to, well, aliens are so advanced that makes them good and benevolent. We can't understand them because how can an ant understand a human, etc., etc., etc. And I'll always kind of come back. I'll always kind of point out that I don't feel, and a lot of people don't feel, that all the things that we see the aliens doing is benevolent. Like flying their spaceships over our neighborhoods in the middle of the night and beaming people up to them against their will and doing whatever they do them up there. Testing them, poking them, prodding them, feeding them snacks, eating them as snacks, having sex with them, breeding with them, taking them off to another planet for 20 years and transporting them back to where they were when they were looking. Any of those kinds of things. And then there's stuff that they're going to talk about and mention in this interview, like pretty much all of Brazilian ufology has to do with aliens doing kind of bad shit. It's never aliens are showing up and doing good stuff, right? And so when you get to Brazilian ufology, you run into all sorts of cases of harm being caused to humans in all sorts of different ways, right? Just like what Jacques says here, he says, well, I'm not sure any of it's on purpose. The harm, which is, I would respond the same way to him as I would respond to, Greer UFO Twitter random who's talking about all aliens benevolent. I was like, well, capturing the humans against their will in the middle of the night and sexing them is not benevolent behavior. And so even if there is also accidents like burning people with radiation, landing on them and squishing them, procedures going wrong because you're planting a tracker, even the fact that they're putting a tracker, none of that is like good guy behavior. Even if that's stuff that good guys do, right? That makes them normal, makes them regular, makes them just like us, right? Makes them just like any other group of humans. You got some good ones and some bad ones and some medium ones and some ones that are way off over there and some ones that are way off over there and some ones that just took off and left and did their own thing. So they get into that kind of, I don't know, what is this, we'd say the last 15 minutes, the last 20 minutes is them kind of discussing the harms, the documented harms of aliens, and they don't get into too much detail as far as, and they never get far enough. I think Ross was gonna push it there at some point, but they never get far enough where they go into some of the extreme stuff that we see people talking about, as far as humans and aliens killing each other down inside of military bases and off on other planets and etc. Or that there's a war between the reptilians and the Greys / Mantids / Nordics, or that there's all sorts of very complicated, sophisticated, intergalactic political violence going on between all sorts of groups, not just their ethnic species groups, but that they have political groups, that there's different kinds of Greys, and they're not necessarily all on board with each other, and the Greys aren't necessarily in the same boat with the Nordics, and so on and so on. So they kind of just stop short of that, but they get into it. And like I was saying, like, Ross is doing a good job in this interview, because normally what you get when you see a Jacques Vallee interview is you just kind of have a person just kind of letting Jacques talk about one kind of particular thing or aspect or topic. And so, at the 5-minute mark, 2-minute mark, 18, 21, 1 hour, Ross is kind of interrupting Jacques and saying, hey man, I want to keep you on topic on this, or I want to interrupt and challenge you on this, or I want to kind of like stop you from rambling here and kind of pin you down on your opinion of this really specific thing. Like, what about the Brazilian Chupa Chupas and all the pictures of mutilated humans and people have been burned or squished? So I think, he did a good job, and it doesn't get contentious. There's never like a Jesse Michaels moment in here where the guest kind of looks at him like, fuck you. Ross is smiling the whole time. Jacques seems to be kind of enjoying himself. And, as far as the Jacques interview goes, this is not very long. And it's pretty concise. It's kind of fun. This is a good watch. This is definitely, no matter what your opinion of Ross Coulthart is, this hour and 15 minutes is definitely required ufology stuffs, because it's a pretty good interview. This is a good side, a good showing of Jacques. And there's none of the agenda that seems to typically be present when Ross Coulthart is presenting ufology stuff in this one. And they kind of get through it all. There's no bookmarks in here. They probably, since they did in their last one, they probably got some summary down here. Oh yeah, here you go. Let's look at it. Retrieval programs, French government, investigating UAPs. Does Jacques think that the U.S. is concealing information about about NHI? They spend, a good 30-40 minutes in here is them talking about Men in Black, and Jacques' lifetime of work kind of documenting the Men in Black, working with Robert Bigelow, religion, disclosure, NHI benevolence. Okay, that is them talking about a harm. They say it starts at the 105 mark in the video. Is Vallee closer to a definitive answer? He says no. Who's behind the cover up? Then, circle back to the Men in Black. And who's behind the cover up is the phenomenon, right? Is that there's a group of humans who are genetically different from all the other humans and have the ability to create countermeasures against aliens. Whatever that means exactly, they don't actually get into it. Kind of what they, especially when you take into account kind of the rest of Ross's agenda up to this point, is he's kind of trying to say psychics, right? The physonics, the people who are able to kind of detect aliens, not be as directly controlled by aliens, able to communicate with aliens without getting harmed immediately, etc. They don't go into those details. It just kind of like says it. And like I said, I could see him kind of like Ross. I can see him kind of coming up to the edge of his agenda and then not doing it with Jacques Vallee, which is great choice on his part, because this, as far as Jacques Vallee interviews go out there, this is one of the very best. The only reason it's not the very best is because it's only an hour long and they don't get into very much nitty-gritty detail. They skim the surface of pretty much everything in ufology and get down into, just past the shallow level on some of the topics. So great watch. Whether or not you're a Ross Coulthart fan or not, good stuff, good Jacques Vallee stuff, good ufology stuff. Make sure you get some of that.